All right, let's get into it. What do a 2,000-year-old man, a singing Hitler, and a blazing saddle have in common? The genius of Mel Brooks. Hey, it's Emma, and I am genuinely giddy about today's topic. Like, I might start tap dancing. Don't test me. So, let's talk Mel Brooks. He has an EGOT. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. He is the chaos gremlin of American comedy in the best way. Film, television, Broadway. He basically built a theme park where the rides are parodies and the exits are punchlines. The Producers in the 60s, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein in the 70s, Get Smart on TV. And then he comes back decades later and shatters Broadway records. Icon behavior. Personal tea time. A couple years ago, I went to a Mel Brooks film festival at this gorgeous old movie palace in my city. Velvet seats, sticky floors, total vibe. It was a double feature, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. And I was low-key nervous because when a theater fills with superfans, you don't want to be the one person not laughing. At first, I'm like, wait, why is Count Basie's jazz band in the middle of the desert? Count Basie was a swing-era bandleader, by the way. And why are we lampooning Western cliches I barely watched growing up? Some of the Yiddish asides and old Hollywood references flew over my head. Big yikes. But then the entire room starts rolling, and comedy is contagious. The timing, the rhythm, the way a dumb joke becomes genius because it's delivered with surgical precision. I found myself laughing before I knew why, and then it clicked. By the time Young Frankenstein hit that violin theme and the monster does soft chew, I was gone, a believer. The humor is a bridge. People older than me cackling at the classic horror send-ups, people my age vibing with the meta jokes and sheer audacity, and some Gen Z crew behind me whispering, "This is so camp." That's the magic. Brooks doesn't just punch up a genre, he invites the whole room to be in on it. Okay, let's move on. Who is Mel Brooks in simple terms? Imagine comedy as a recipe. Take slapstick you can feel in your shins, satire that bullies bullies, musical numbers that burst out of nowhere, and meta winks that break the fourth wall like it owes him money. Stir, that's Mel. Quick timeline. He grows up in Brooklyn in the 20s and 30s, does army service in World War II in the 40s, then hustles in the Borscht Belt, those Catskills resorts where comics learned to slay or die trying. In the 50s, he writes for Sid Caesar, the TV pioneer behind Your Show of Shows. In the 60s, he co-creates Get Smart with Buck Henry, who's the sharp screenwriter behind The Graduate. Then, boom, The Producers in 1968 wins him an Oscar. In 1974, he drops Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein in the same year, like a double album. In the 80s, he forms Brooks Films to produce serious movies like The Elephant Man with director David Lynch. Into the 2000s, he turns The Producers into a Broadway mega hit and stacks Tonys. Into the 2020s, he's still out here with History of the World Part 2 on Hulu, an honorary Oscar in 2024, and a Spaceballs sequel announced in 2025. The stamina is wild. I'm obsessed. Let's jump to the next thing, the people around him. First, Carl Reiner. He's the comedy legend behind The Dick Van Dyke Show and Brooks's lifelong bestie. Together, they birthed The 2,000-Year-Old Man, which started as party improv and became million-selling albums in the early 60s. It was hilarious, and also paid the bills when film projects stalled. There were long gaps because, by their own admission, the nervous tension of keeping that lightning in a bottle was real. But the chemistry was unreal. Then Gene Wilder, the soft-eyed, curly-haired comic actor who co-wrote Young Frankenstein. He's the soul of that film. That deadpan and that little half smile melted me. That project is a love letter to 30s monster movies, down to the black and white look and even using vintage-style lab equipment. It's parody as scholarship. And the supporting players, Madeline Kahn, the queen of flashing from elegant to feral in one breath. Marty Feldman with those iconic eyes. Peter Boyle as the sweetest monster ever. Chef's kiss. Do not sleep on John Morris, the composer who scored Brooks's classics. He gives the jokes a heartbeat. The Blazing Saddles theme and that swoony Young Frankenstein violin do a lot of heavy lifting. And Thomas Meehan, the book writer who co-crafted the Producers musical, helped translate the film's chaos into Broadway's structure without losing the naughty sparkle. That's a brutal adaptation trick, and they nailed it. Also, Buck Henry, the sly satirist I mentioned, co-created Get Smart with Brooks and basically sprays seltzer all over the James Bond fantasy. And in Blazing Saddles, Brooks worked from a story by Andrew Bergman, with co-writers including Richard Pryor, the groundbreaking stand-up philosopher of pain and truth. You feel Pryor's voltage in how the movie talks about racism. It's not polite, and it's not supposed to be. Now, imagine being Brooks in the late 60s with The Producers. He's trying to sell a comedy that puts a musical number called Springtime for Hitler on stage. Everyone says absolutely not. Then, Peter Sellers, the British comedy icon from The Pink Panther, literally buys full-page ads to hype the film. That kind of allyship is rare. Brooks won the Oscar for the screenplay, and when someone called it vulgar, he shot back. Lady, it rose below vulgarity. That's a clapback and a thesis statement. Okay, pause. Here's the big question everyone nerds out on: his exact World War II timeline. A Defense Department reporter placed him in France in late 1944, with service in Belgium, while Brooks himself later said he boarded overseas in early 1945. There are also references to a December 1944 transfer to an engineer combat battalion and participation in the Battle of the Bulge. The receipts do not perfectly line up. Welcome to wartime paperwork and human memory. Here's what is solid. He served as a forward observer and then a combat engineer, helped locate landmines, watched bridges go up under fire, and then switched into special services, performing for troops before an honorable discharge in the mid-40s. He also once answered Nazi loudspeakers by singing Al Jolson into a bullhorn, and he decked an anti-Semitic heckler and landed in the stockade. That anger and that refusal to be cowed show up later in his satire of fascism and bigotry. So yeah, my take is the exact week he shipped out matters less than how the war imprinted his comedy. He weaponized ridicule against authoritarian nonsense, and that's the legacy I care about. Now for something different. Why is he still relevant? Blazing Saddles is in the National Film Registry, which is the Library of Congress saying this film is culturally significant and should be preserved. The movie drags the racism baked into old westerns into the sunlight and mocks it to its face. Yes, the language is harsh. That's the point. And when the film literally breaks out of its own western into a studio lot brawl, that meta-chaos feels like it predicted internet comedy decades early. High-key, so many modern parody shows owe him rent. He also keeps popping up for new generations. Voice roles in Robots and Hotel Transylvania, the Hulu revival History of the World Part 2, an honorary Oscar, and Spaceballs. A new one is on the way. Grandpa comedy is still booked and busy. Teeny tease for next time, we're diving into how classic comedies morph into modern musicals, from screen to stage to screen again, and why some glow up while others flop. Bring your playbills, honey. Okay, we covered a lot. Keep comedy alive, mock the tyrants, and if the saddle's blazing, you're probably watching the right movie. I'll be back to spill more tea. Later.